thank you everyone for being here this morning. I know it's probably pretty difficult to get up on your summer vacation for some of you and be here, right? But that just shows how much you care about your own students. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Mayra Orozco, and I was actually born in Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. I am the youngest of 8. Yes, 8. We like to have big families in Mexico. When I immigrated with my family to the United States, I was only 5 years old. And as you can imagine, when I entered elementary school, I did not know a single word of English. So in my school, they considered me an early bird. And what that meant is that I would come to school about 30, 40 minutes before the fluent English speakers. And in some sense, you can say that the program worked. I learned the language, and I also assimilated into the U.S. culture. Throughout my school career, I was not known by my actual name, which is Mayra. People couldn't pronounce it, so they would call me Mayra. I liked Mayra better than Mayra or Mayda or whatever other name came out when they tried to pronounce my name. I began to feel okay with it, being called Mayra. And so during this time, I got reclassified, like in junior high, from being an English learner. So it took me a while. I got reclassified in junior high, and during that time, I became a resident of this great nation. And so you can't imagine how proud I actually felt to be finally American. And even though I felt like my school forgot to acknowledge my culture and my language, my family kept me grounded in my Mexican roots. But I kind of felt like I was living two separate lives, Mayra, the English speaker at school, and Mayra, the Spanish speaker at home. And so honestly, at times it was kind of confusing knowing which one was the real me. Fortunately, we were talking about amazing teachers with Dr. Jill Biden. I had an amazing teacher, and she's with us here today, this morning, Miss Jamie Sansoni. She was my Spanish teacher, and she really cared about me as a person, and she saw something in me, and so she introduced me to an organization called LULAC. And LULAC stands for the League of United Latin American Citizens, and it's a community-based organization, and they identified me as a strong Mexican-American woman that could actually make a difference in my community. Thanks to the belief of this organization and their support, I was able to attend a 4-year university and graduate. I was the first in my family to do so. I am a dual language educator, and I'm very proud of it. So why did I take the time to tell you this about my life? I felt like very few teachers in my early years made an effort to get to know me and my culture. I didn't see myself in the curriculums or in the lessons they were teaching. For the last 10 years, I, as a bilingual educator myself, I thought I was doing something different. I was engaging my students by making sure that I changed math problems to at least have names that sounded like theirs, and by calling them by their actual names. And I was providing them comprehensible input and background knowledge on the lessons I was teaching. Well, recently, I finally began to understand what many exemplary teachers, maybe some of you are out here today, have been implementing in their classrooms for quite some time. And that's culturally responsive teaching. Culturally responsive teaching, let me see if I have my. Culturally responsive teaching, according to a 1994 study by Gloria Lanson Billings, is defined as the pedagogy that recognizes the importance of including students' cultural reference in all aspects of learning. The study also describes the following characteristics of culturally responsive teaching. It says that teachers hold a positive perspective of parents and families, that we communicate high expectations of all students, that learning occurs best within the context of culture, that instruction should be student-centered, that we implement culturally mediated instruction, that curriculum is reshaped to be more authentic, and that teachers serve as facilitators to student learning. As you can see, the characteristics of this study, they're nothing new. This study has actually been around since I was in 6th grade. I wish that was 10 years ago, but it wasn't. Yet, why is our curriculum still lacking these cultural connections 23 years after the study was done? Well, the good news is that it's getting better. I was at a literacy conference just this week, 2 days ago, and I found this, and I couldn't believe it. I'm gonna get teary-eyed probably right now, but I couldn't believe it. Mayra's story, even saying it puts a knot in my throat. Never in my life would I have expected to see my name in a guided reading book. Sorry, I had to share that because it was one of those things where I was walking by and I'm like, oh, no way. Okay. So there is hope for our curriculum. So the how of implementing culturally responsive lessons finally made sense to me 3 years ago. I became part of a research study funded by the National Science Foundation here at Cal State Fullerton. The project was called Transforming Academic and Cultural Identidad Through Biliteracy. We call it TASIB. Through this project, I was able to collaborate with inspiring Cal State Fullerton faculty like Dr. Mark Ellis, Dr. Armando Martinez Cruz, and many other great, inspiring faculty here at Cal State Fullerton. We also worked with dual immersion teachers from Anaheim Union and Anaheim Elementary School districts. Yeah, I have some friends here. Together, we designed culturally relevant and math and science units that were authentic and engaging for the students. One of my favorite activities was interviewing and recording parents about how they used math and science in their daily lives or in their jobs. Many of the video interviews were recorded by students themselves using cell phones, because they all have them now. This served various purposes. It engaged the students before the lessons were ever created, and simultaneously, we worked on those listening and speaking standards that I'm going to show for you in a more authentic way. Once the videos were created, we designed integrated math and science lesson, sprinkling in those language arts standards along the way. One example of this cultural responsive lesson that we taught at Price Elementary in Anaheim during a family night was using a video of a parent who was a catering manager. We designed a planning a quinceanera lesson where the main objective was for students to understand the connection between repeated addition and multiplication. The video featured a party planner talking about how she used mathematics to figure out how many tables, chairs, place settings, and so on would be needed for the event. This gives the students background information and solidified the role of the parent as not only a worker in the life of the local community, but also as a contributing member to our classroom learning environment. The fact that we use the quinceañera as the context of the problem reinforced the culture of the predominantly Hispanic population of Anaheim. At the same time, The lesson enriched the cultural awareness of the students that were unfamiliar with the celebration. Another lesson that I recently did in my classroom at Washington Elementary in Norco was a real estate lesson in 5th grade. I personally was in the process of buying a home. My students were very interested in helping me with this process, so I recruited them as my real estate agents. Well, not really, but they really slipped into that role. I had my students explore Zillow and Redfin to figure out home values in different neighborhoods. We began to study place value and how value of homes changed based on their location. They also understood the importance of place value and having a monthly mortgage payment. When they found $1 million homes and compared those to homes in the 100,000s place value, they really understood the difference between the two. This opened up the opportunity to explore issues of equity and social justice. And once we completed all our observations, I actually invited a classroom parent from one of my students at the time, and she was a real estate agent. And so she came to my classrooms, and I prepared my students to interview her. And so we developed a list of questions to ask her. And students asked her about her job, what it entailed, and how they should go about finding me my perfect home. They were truly engaged, and at the same time, I checked off some more listening and speaking standards. Later, they interviewed me based on the insights they had gained from the realtor. They asked me questions like, where would you want your home? What location? What's your budget? How many bedrooms do you want? And, well, just everything that would make the perfect home for me. After the interview, the students went into their research teams and found a portfolio of homes that I can potentially buy. The collaboration and the use of content-specific language were far beyond any of my expectations. Some even went as far, listen to this, to ask their parents to take them to see the homes in person. They're like, there's a house right here in my neighborhood, Miss Orozco, why don't you move in next door? They're so funny. They later wrote an opinion essay as to why they believed their home was the one I should actually purchase. The funny thing is, their opinions did matter. They persuaded me to move from Orange County to Norco. Yeah. Talk about persuasive writing, right? Through the TACIP project, we collectively designed these and many other lessons. We designed these and many other lessons and engaged in self-reflection, which was a big piece of TACIP. We used a culturally responsive teaching guide that is available to you, if you'd like, on the TACIP website. The tool addressed various teaching strategies, including terms you might already be familiar with. I'm going to put these up for you. 1, cognitive demand. 2, depth of knowledge. 3, math and science discourse. 4, power and participation. 5, academic language. And for the purposes of this talk, I'm going to focus on the last 2 areas of reflection, which is cultural and community funds of knowledge. And this is the type of question that I had to reflect on my lessons. It reads, how well does my teaching help students meaningfully connect math and science with relevant and authentic situations in their lives or communities? And the last area is transformation. How does my teaching support students' use of math and science to understand, critique, and change issues of equity, opportunity, and access in their lives or in their community? Using this tool helped me self-reflect on my teaching practices, and it also allowed the tacit group to brainstorm ideas on how to modify lessons and make them more culturally responsive and even transformational. So what does all this mean for you? It means that now, more than ever, whether you're an early childhood educator, a special education teacher, an administrator, whether you're teaching biology, music, art, mathematics, social studies, or you're an elementary school teacher like me, I urge you to find the connection to the community you serve. Engage the families and make them feel valued. Embrace your students' culture and challenge their thinking. Call them by their name. My name is Mayra Orozco. I'm a dual immersion educator. I was hired to advance my students' academic success. I do so by leveraging their cultural identities and experiences and promoting equity and social justice. And in the words of Jose Medina from the Center of Applied Linguistics, tenemos que estar preparados para abogar por las familias y alumnos que servimos. We need to be prepared to advocate for the families and the students we serve. Most, if not all of you, entered this profession with the goal of changing the world. I know we have big goals, right? Changing the world by changing children's lives. The beautiful thing about our profession is that we get a fresh start every year. Let's start planning culturally responsive lessons in your sessions today. Thank you. Have an amazing school year. Thank you for having me. Gracias.